Good morning. Pardon my ache, look, it's hair wash day, so we really just had to slick it back a little bit, but I am very excited for today's vlog. So if you somehow this is your first video you stumbled across, hi, I'm Anna. I'm a baby social worker. I just graduated with my MSW last May, and so I'm about 2 months into the field, and I work as a mental health clinician at Juvenile Detention Center. That being said, I'm currently providing extra help at a different facility, at the one I actually did my field placement at, just for while they're hiring new people and getting everyone trained and everything. I've been coming in on some weekends. And so today is Saturday, and like I said, I'm very excited for this vlog because it's been requested several times that I kind of go into mock sessions of like what my work actually looks like on a clinical level inside the Juvenile Detention Center with the teenage boys that I work with. Obviously, it could go without being said that I can't get into real situations because confidentiality, you know, my clients' stories are their stories for them to keep and tell at their own, but never for me to tell. But I can kind of create a little John Doe situation. And so today the plan is to walk through one of the PTSD diagnostic sessions, assessment type things that we do. That being said, I first have to go in and see my actual clients, do my actual thing with them. I really shouldn't be in for too long today, just because while I'm here on the weekends, the biggest things are kind of doing rounds to check on anyone who needs to be checked on, make sure there's no crises. If there are any crises or anyone who like needs support, then handling that as it comes up, but that doesn't always come up, and just kind of being a face, you know, around the place. Sometimes if there's ever like an assessment or anything, then I'll help out with that, but not always. So I could be here even for like 2 hours or so. But after I do all that with my real clients and we get home and everything, do the commute back, I'm really excited to dive deeper into what I clinically do sometimes in a day.
Now the only consolation prize is maybe that the simulation got it right.
Work was alright today. I did spend about 2.5 hours in there, I believe. And honestly, I don't always talk about like things that can occur in jail because I'll let you go to other channels to experience some of that. But sometimes various things with bodily fluids are common in jail type settings. And let me just say that I was witness to one of the most disgusting smells that I have ever smelled in my life today. And I feel, I'm not actually traumatized, like I'm gonna be using that word not in a clinical sense. I feel traumatized. I feel like I can keep smelling it. Nothing was put on me, to make that clear, but I feel like I keep smelling it. I like have lit so many candles in here since I got back. I've checked all my clothes, and like really I think it's just a figment of my imagination, but it was gross. But meat and potatoes of today's vlog, the reason maybe you clicked on it. I do want to mention before we get into this part of the video that this screening that I'm about to do is not in any type of way diagnostic for you watching. While I am a mental health professional with a degree, I am not your mental health professional with a degree. And so if there's anything that's happened in your life that you are feeling like maybe you would like to seek help for, or maybe you're thinking that you would like to be assessed for or anything like that, I do encourage you to seek that help, but I am not that help. So just that little disclaimer that this is for clinical information and not for personal diagnosing. Felt like I just had to throw that in there. I feel like people would do those disclaimers, so there was mine. As I mentioned, I've gotten several requests to kind of show some type of diagnostic type assessments and stuff that we can do. And a resource that I have found to be really helpful if you're curious for that type of thing is the International Society for Traumatic Stress Studies website. So it's istss.org, but it stands for International Society for Traumatic Stress Studies. And what you'll find on there are a bunch of different assessments and such for different situations. And so they have clinical resources, and they have like adult trauma assessments, and then they have various like clinician administered, primary care administered, just like regular checklists type things, but they have like adult, child, and then I even see now that they have a trauma treatment section. So I kind of want, oh yeah, as I browse through the website, it looks very interesting. So that's International Society for Traumatic Stress Studies. The one that I'll kind of walk through today is one that I am familiar with, and it is called the Structured Trauma-Related Experiences and Symptoms Screener. That, if you noticed, spells stress. Structured Trauma-Related Experiences and Symptoms Screener. There was a while when there was an actual study going on for this assessment, and so there's a whole script that we have that whenever they were actually doing the research study on it, they said to like, you gotta say it word for word, because then it, you know how research works. You gotta make sure the environment is the same for everyone who's taking it. I do not do that. The ones we do now are not like participating in research. It's just for the client's personal diagnostic everything. And so what the stress actually is a 10 to 15 self-report instrument. How it's supposed to go is that, you welcome the client in, and usually I'll kind of explain a little bit of like what we're doing today is called a stress test, and it's going to ask you a lot of questions about various things that have happened in your life. You always start with confidentiality. Remember, everything that you say in here is confidential, staying within the mental health department. The exceptions to that are if you tell me that you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt somebody else, or that you've been abused, because in those situations we just got to make sure that everyone remains safe. After you explain confidentiality, always seek some sort of acknowledgement of understanding, like, does that make sense to you? Do you have any questions? To which they can be like, yes, sounds good. So with the stress test, like I said, it's going to ask about various things that happened in your life. And why we ask about these things is sometimes whenever very bad or scary things happen to people, they have different reactions to them. And lots of the reactions are normal. They happen to a lot of people, but they also can help inform how we're going to go forward with treatment. You're welcome to go into as much detail or as little detail as you would like about these events that have happened in your life. And then especially because whenever I do this with a child, usually it means that like they're on my caseload, like they're going to be mine. And so sometimes I'll even throw in there, sometimes this is helpful because if you're ever wondering when is a comfortable time to bring up something that you would like to talk about in your past, this is a way that if you feel comfortable bringing it up and talking about it, you can let me know, and in future sessions we can dive deeper into some of these things. But I always make sure they feel comfortable being honest by letting them know that like you are welcome to tell me more about it. You don't have to tell me more about it. It's totally okay at this point. It's just the assessment to see how what has happened to you in the past does or does not still affect you right now. This particular assessment checklist type thing is supposed to be self-administered. This is something that I find whenever we're doing it, it's really just client to client basis, kind of meeting them where they're at, because there are some who read and write at typical age level, and you can like pass it to them and just say, okay, read these questions out loud and like let me know how you're answering, so it's almost like they're not presenting it to you, but it's like it's still a together thing, but they are doing it and they are circling and they are marking and everything. Some clients that we have don't read comfortably, and in that case we'll do it together in a more collaborative sense where it's like I'll read it and then like they'll answer, or if they can read some or would like to read some, like maybe we'll take turns or something like that. But, and this is coming from its own description, the screener that we use assesses lifetime exposure to several domains of potentially traumatic and other adverse experiences and the age of occurrence. So it's yeses or no's, but if they say yes, then we ask the age that it happened, or happened the first time, or happened most impactful time, depending on what it was. And then it also assesses PTSD symptoms that map onto symptom criteria defined in the DSM-5 and applicable to one or more traumatic events. So you'll see what that is once we get to it. And then it also assesses for functional impairment, because that is something that I love how much mental health is talked about now, because I do think people are doing great work with removing stigma and everything. But this is a whole different video topic that I could get into. I'm just going to throw it in, like put a little pin in it right here. Sometimes, and I feel like I see this specifically on TikTok, whenever people are talking about different diagnoses and being like, oh, maybe I have this diagnosis, or maybe I have this diagnosis. If you're ever concerned about yourself and you feel like maybe a diagnosis could be helpful to you in getting some sort of help that you need, then that is definitely something to seek out. Because sometimes people adapt really well. Like maybe they could lean more on an anxious side of the anxiety spectrum or something, but they're able to cope with it in a way that it's not causing functional impairment, then they don't have to get diagnosed with it. If a diagnosis ever validates someone's experience, then like that's kind of a different story. But you know what I mean? I feel like functional impairment isn't always talked about, especially with like self-diagnosing. If you're able to live your life okay and like have found systems that work for you and everything, then that's different. I don't remember how I got into that. Oh, because this assesses for functional impairment. So it's possible for some people that they experience a plethora of traumatic experiences, and maybe they still think about them from time to time, but it doesn't actually genuinely impair the way that they're living their life now. Then that's not necessarily PTSD. Like they've still been through stuff, but it's not, you are experiencing days at a tougher to get through because of things that have happened to you, functionally impaired. That's whenever diagnoses would be more relevant. Anyways, getting into the actual assessment itself, now that we're 10 minutes into this clip, I will link the screening down below just because it's free online. So if anyone is like curious what this could look like, or if you're going into work that may be dealing with people who have experienced trauma or anything like that, it can just be cool to see different screening tools. And no screening tool is perfect at all, but I could put that disclaimer with literally everything I talk about. So I'm not going to ask the full question for all of these just because that would get very repetitive. But remember, I already said all of the like intro we do, and then with the assessing for traumatic experiences that they may have been around, there are 25 questions. And so remember, there are yeses and nos, and if it's a yes, it's at what age. There are a couple of these that are reverse scored, and you'll see how that is whenever we get to them. But the things that it asks if you've been through: really bad storm, disaster like a flood, earthquake, or hurricane. Have you or anyone in your family been in an actual war? Have you ever been in a serious fire or lost your home in a fire? Ever been in a really bad car accident? Ever had to stay in the hospital because you were really sick or badly injured? Has anyone in your family ever had to stay in the hospital because they were really sick or badly injured? Has anyone ever beaten you up so badly that you had bruises, cuts, or injuries? Have adults in your home ever slapped, punched, or kicked you? Have adults in your home ever hit you so hard that you had bruises or red marks? Something that I find comes up quite a bit with the clients that I work with is lots of times they'll feel unsure if their experiences qualify for a yes answer, like for the has anyone ever beaten you up so badly. Some of these kids may have been in fights that haven't necessarily been traumatic, so they'll ask like, well, I was beaten up, but like not for real, like it wasn't that bad, like whatever. And so whenever they ask clarifying questions like that, I personally am always just like, it really is up to you. If you feel like this was a big enough event that it felt really bad or really scary, or it's something that still comes up in your day-to-day that you think about or dream about or any of that, then go with a yes. But if you truly feel like it wasn't that big of a deal, then you don't have to say yes to any of them. You know what I mean? Have you ever been really hungry because your family didn't have enough to eat? Did the adults in your home not care if you regularly went to school? Okay, so that's the one that is reverse scored in the copy that I use, because I guess they fixed it now. Because it in our copy asks, did the adults in your home regularly make sure you go to school? And so for that one, it's like the yes is the less traumatic of the two. The no would be like the more neglectful side of it, and so it was reverse scored. But the way that that just phrased it would be regular. Have you ever been homeless? Have you ever been separated from someone you depend on for love or safety for more than a few days? Remember, the clients I work with are in jail, so that one is usually a yes. Being in jail is traumatic. Have you ever known or seen a family member being arrested, put in jail, or taken away by police? Have you ever been told over and over that you were no good, or that the people you live with would leave you or send you away? Have you ever seen or heard adults in your home beat each other up or throw things at each other? Have you ever seen or heard people in your neighborhood get badly hurt or killed? Has anyone ever told you so much about how someone you love died that you pictured it in your own head? Has anyone ever told you they were going to hurt you or kill you? Has anyone ever made you feel so scared that you thought they might badly hurt or kill you? Have you ever thought that someone was going to really hurt or kill someone you love? Has anyone ever tried to touch your private body parts or tried to make you touch theirs when you didn't want to? Has anyone ever touched your private body parts or made you touch theirs when you didn't want to? So it's the difference between tried to and did. Has anyone much older than you ever touched your private body parts whether you wanted them to or not? And then, has anything else really scary or very bad ever happened to you? Usually I phrase that in, has there been anything else that you've been through that you feel like might be relevant? And sometimes more things will come up and sometimes they won't. So then if someone says no to all of the preceding questions, it ends there because they haven't been through a traumatic experience like that. But if they say yes to any of the questions that we just said, I usually with my clients, well, because it's written out with the little script, so I'll usually be like, there's this whole script they want me to say about how, thank you for telling me these very scary or bad things, and they'll kind of laugh a little bit. It just depends on the client, you know, but you can be playful with stuff even if it is serious stuff, as long as you're matching the client's energy, you know? But these questions ask about problems some people have after scary or bad things happen to them. Please think about a scary or bad thing that has happened to you and how you have been thinking, feeling, or acting in the past week when answering these questions, and check your answer. And so with the symptom type questions, you get to pick between none, 1 day, 2 to 3 days, most days. And the symptoms that they check for are thoughts and memories about what happened pop into your mind, something reminded you about what happened, how often did it make your body feel bad or sick, like your stomach or your head hurt. In the past week, how often was it hard to remember parts of what happened? How often were you bored doing the things you normally like to do? In the past week, how often did you look around a lot just in case something bad might happen? How often did you have scary dreams or nightmares? How often did you try to keep your body from feeling ways that reminded you of what happened? How often did you think the world is a bad place or not as good as it used to be? How often did you feel lonely even when you were around friends or family? Did you get really scared when you heard or saw something you were not expecting to happen? That's like an increased startle response. How often did memories about what happened make you lose track of time or forget where you were? Did you try to stop yourself from having thoughts, memories, or feelings about what happened? In the past week, how often did you think that a part of what happened was your fault? How often did you feel really grumpy? How often did you feel like you could not focus on things? How often did you get really upset when you saw, heard, or felt something like what had happened? How often did you try to get away when you were in a place or saw something that reminded you of what happened? How often did you feel really bad, like mad, scared, or sad for most of the day? How often did you do things that other people think are dangerous or not safe? How often did you wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble falling back to sleep? How often was it hard for you to feel happiness or love? How often did it feel like you didn't know yourself or your own body, like you were seeing a stranger when you looked in the mirror? How often did you feel like people or places around you seemed totally strange, like you were in a dream even though you were awake? And have you had these problems for at least the past month? So the month question is literally just like diagnostic criteria for PTSD or partial PTSD, but you can kind of, depending on your familiarity with mental health type things, each of the symptoms that just went through would have like a clinically more official like name for it. But I like that this words it in a way that would make it make sense to someone who is taking it. You know what I mean? Because like they're not going to ask, how often in the past week have you had dissociative symptoms? But they could ask, how often did it feel like you didn't know yourself or your own body, like you were seeing a stranger when you looked in the mirror? Or like people and places around you were a dream even though they were real life. But the different types of symptoms that they kind of have are like intrusion, which is like distressing thoughts, memories, flashbacks, like something is intruding into your mind. Avoidance, and those are like numbing of feelings, removing yourself from any type of situation that reminds you of the traumatic event. Negative changes in mood and cognitions. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's the feeling down, feeling depressed, among other parts of it. Alterations in arousal and reactivity. Those are the ones like an increased startle response, hypervigilance, like people may be like looking over their shoulder, or just kind of living at a point where it's like stay ready so you don't have to get ready, you know, where you're living in a heightened sense of being because you're always worried that something may be about to pop off, you know, depending on the type of traumatic event they've been through. And then symptoms present for at least the past month. Like I said, that's just a diagnostic criteria where if you experience symptoms for 2 days, then that's not necessarily a diagnosis. And then the functional impairment questions that it asks is, since the scary or bad things happened, is it harder to, and then make or keep friends, get along with other kids your age, do schoolwork, get along with your teachers, get along with people you live with, and get your chores done? With all of this, we don't diagnose, like I do not have that power. It is people with higher degrees than me that will kind of review these and like look at it. But after completing that whole self-assessment, usually it can take kind of a long time. I know whenever I was reading the description, it said like a 10 to 15 self-questionnaire, but I guess that'd be if you're not doing it like therapeutically together. So it can take 45 minutes, an hour or so, but it's always important to take the extra minutes to wrap up and also to, how do you like therapeutically say, lighten the mood? Like after we talk about such hard things, you don't just want to be like, all right, thanks for sharing, see ya, and send them out the door, because it's like you just opened up this big trauma box and you didn't close it back up before sending them out back into their regular life. And so I think it's really important to spend the time, depending on how the client, how their mood is, like sometimes talking about it just doesn't affect them at all because it's just like, yeah, that's my life, that's the stuff I've been through. Whereas sometimes talking about it can start bringing up intrusive thoughts or something like that. And so it's just important to read where the client is at and like get them to a place where they can safely and securely go through about the rest of their day, like where it's not just down the rabbit hole and staying down the rabbit hole. I don't do that with like all of my clients or anything, but just sometimes it is helpful and beneficial, even just for the sense of psychoeducation of whenever scary and bad things happen to people, they're going to have some sort of reaction, and those reactions themselves aren't bad. It's the bad things that happened that are bad, but there are ways that we can work together to find ways to lessen the uncomfortable reactions that you may be having to the scary or bad things that have happened to you in the past. And obviously, as you get to know a client, then you can like be referring to those by name instead of just scary or bad things. That was fun. I'm glad we got to do that. That was a fun little clinical moment we just had together. I am going to eat lunch because I haven't even done that yet. Let's see it. Oh, it's only 12:58. That's not crazy, just 12:58. Take my jail clothes off and really try to switch gears into the rest of the day, because I can't be jail brain all day, you know? I can be jail brain for some day, but not all of the day.
And in that flash of light, are we the sum of all our wasted time? Because this life is brief and no one truly knows the pain you keep, but still beneath the bittersweet, I need it endlessly. Nights when the stars are
Oh my god, that hit literally the building. It was right here.
Just thunderstorm things. There was a moment I thought I got electrocuted. Then I realized I was a little dramatic.
Standoffs between me, myself, and I. Looking back and forth, thinking, oh my love, one of us has got to try. All we had to leave for an atom bomb was the start of this. Really worth the fall. Just take
Oh, yeah.
steps and turn around and then draw your gun and shoot me down because this love's a door. So baby, don't be a fool. No confusions feel in control. You know you've got no idea what's going on.
Did you like the weather change in the middle of the day? I did, for sure. Did you see it? Like, it was sunny. Like, I was laying out by the pool. I was reading. I was having the summer day of my life. And then got back home, and probably within about 30 minutes, the sky is entirely darkened and huge thunderstorm. We did not get struck by lightning. I do realize that clip might have been dramatic, but it really was like a jump scare because I was just recording because I was like, oh, the rain is so pretty. Maybe I'll get a little thunder. And almost as soon as I started recording, there was that huge crash, and the actual lightning strike was like out this window and I was at that window, and so we couldn't see it. Zach saw it though. He says that like it actually did hit the tree and there is a branch down, but we did not get electrocuted like I originally thought that I did. But this was a fun video and a fun idea. I do realize that as I come up with like future clinical type videos, if we want to do more like this, I need to find some way to make it kind of more interesting than just sitting down and reading off, because this was my first time doing something like that. And so I don't know how to make it more engaging, how to make it more interesting. I'm really bad at role playing, especially if it's by myself. So that's just something I'll continue brainstorming on. But obviously if you have anything that you want to see, then let me know, because I would love to try to continue making these to like answer questions or just to give more of a picture of what that can actually look like in my job, because I do realize that's kind of something I'm bad at showing, because obviously like I don't take my camera with me into jail because that is illegal. But so anytime that I'm talking, it's like further removed from that kind of work that I'm doing. So I will try to get better about incorporating some sort of like clinical skills and tips and everything into these videos, because that's something that as I first started like my internships, it's just like, how do you even speak to people like on a clinical level, like a client sitting in front of you and you're supposed to like, talk to them and be good? Like I get that that is something that is a big barrier to get over. So that is definitely something that I will try to keep on working into videos, but I'm gonna just need a little help with some inspiration of how you would find interesting to work that into videos. So hopefully this was a little bit helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. I appreciate you watching it all. It's just me sitting down and doing some PTSD work. But of course, I'll be doing future videos, doing some more videos. So subscribe if you would like to see all that is coming. There are very cool things coming. So make sure you're connected into this community that we have, and I'll see you next time.